All right. Hello, welcome back to today's devlog on Chopped on the FlipSide. Today we got a bunch of cool stuff we want to look into, and we'll get right into it. But first, I'd like to remind you guys to go check out our previous games. We have Orphan Tome that released very recently, like last month or so, and a couple other game jams before that one or during the production of that one that'll give a pretty good idea of the capacity or the capabilities that we want to look for in this game as we go forward. Anyways, first thing on actually before we go into the first thing, let's see the list of today's improvements and stuff. So right off the bat, we're going to be looking at some of the level design additions, improvements, and actually going to show some gameplay compared to last time where we didn't. The camera movement around the player has been reworked a bit to look a bit better wherever the player is in the world. We've started controller integration, controller support, so the game is now playable with controller, and any new features will be adapted for that as well. And we've started the functionality of the equipment. Specifically, we have half of the intended abilities, quote unquote, and all of the systems in terms of the essence usage, kind of like the mana system, and a couple of fail safes are implemented, so everything should be flowing easily when we implement the other half. So currently we have the blast, the projectile, the dash, the hover, the shield, and the shrink. Like I said, that's only half of the abilities throughout the entire game. So we'll show some of that as well. And alongside of that, a couple of changes, a couple of small things like there was a bug with the animation for the score showing up at the bottom of the screen. That's been fixed. And we've done a couple of game design reworks. So we'll go into that. We've changed up one of the abilities, and we've changed up some of the gameplay elements down the line that we haven't necessarily looked into yet, but we will when we get there. But first, let's get into the action. All right. So here we have our trusted little start of the first area, the first level. And you can see here that we have it very similar to last time we saw it. We have a couple changes here. And now this door is actually openable to open up to the rest of the level, which is still not done. However, today, let's actually go into the game and check some of these changes. So, for the sake of showing it off, I'm currently using a controller to control the character, which ironically or interestingly is the first game that I actually added controller support to, so it's a good improvement on our side. So essentially, you would bring these colors from these puddles to the totems here. So this first room serves as a very basic tutorial. Get the color, go to the totem. Once all three colors associated to that door are turned on, opens the door, and the white puddle resets your color. So here is the more open area where it invites you to go up to this totem, or you could maybe find a little secret passage that allows for an alternative path through the level. But first, let's do this totem here, unlocking that big door there. This kind of reveals blue over here, jumping over the hazards, and making our way back through, essentially creating a tutorial for kind of getting used to the controls, jumping on these sloped platforms, and really pseudo harmlessly, because this stuff does harm the player, pseudo harmlessly teaching the player kind of like the bare bones of the game in an interesting or soon to be interesting environment. And a little trick right there, you could actually slide up those. The sharper the angle of the slope, the higher you go for some reason. Quirky physics are quirky. But now the door is open, let's go check this out. Now, Here we don't have too much visible to us right off the bat. We have our totem here, a little hazard here, and a little damaging hazard here. So if we kind of go explore a bit, we'll see that the actual puddles are behind here. So we have the blue, or the green and the red, and the blue. You can't see it right now, but I would assume, following the pattern of these kind of waterfall-esque things, it's got to be back there. So first, let's get this color here. Let's see what that does. And it opens the door over there. And now access to the blue and the green. Once again, just getting the bare bones to one that gives access to the other, that gives access to the other. And here we could see that we still need the green to open this little barrier. We cannot, in fact, jump over it. Or we could do a bit of parkour over here to make our way over here and see what this is about. So, might as well. Here you see the door does not open. We're gonna have it be a big like X or something to give some player feedback to say that you cannot go through, and a number 12. So this would correspond to the number of activated colors you need for the door to open. So here we have 4 plus 2 plus 3, so that is, if I math correctly, 9, which is less than 12, therefore not enough. So let's go get a couple more. And that's what kind of entices the player to come back to this area and figure out ways to spread the color even more, because these massive doors will block your progress until enough are turned on. So let's go here. That brings that down, which makes it easier for next time we want to go there. But we still don't have enough. So either we could check out what that hole is over there, or we could try to finagle our way up here. For the sake of it, this is pretty straightforward, so I'll leave that to imagination. Let's go over here and try this little challenge over here. Essentially, this is a bit of a trickier pathway to take, relying specifically on momentum and the angled platforms to make your way through. Once again, teaching the player, or getting the player used to the ball physics, and essentially bringing you to open this path over here. And again, giving us another color score. Here we've seen it before. If you're watching the production stream, we made this in the stream, so this is fairly the same stuff. Green puddles up here. Jump over this to not lose the color. The half slope is kind of interesting considering the wonky ball physics of this game. You can't like build momentum to go all the way up. I mean, you could get close, but it's essentially to teach the player to jump at the peak of the height, and you'll make it that way. So let's spread the color here, open that door, very simple stuff. Make sure to not fall back down over there, and do a bit of parkour. This has been made a bit safer, because it would be quite frustrating to fall down there, so might as well make it a bit safer. Here's a bit more like hole shot, just jumping through a window type thing. And now over here has been also redesigned to make it fairly simpler or easier to traverse. So whether you're going from this way or the other way, if you're not used to these controls, and that's what this whole early section of the game is all about, is to get you used to the controls, it should be a bit more easy and less frustrating for people that are new to the game, or these kind of controls. Once again, the controls aren't made to be difficult. They're just, for non-gamers, they could be a bit of a hassle. So I want to go into, especially these early sections of the game, with that in mind, just to train the player to get good, basically. But of course, there will be a lot more challenging parts of the game, and a lot more like skill-based areas and stuff like that. So now we completed that totem, we got a couple of scores all around, and we kind of did a full circle in this whole area, coming back to over here where the door is. So now we go over here, we have enough, and we could progress through. So here, sadly, nothing else has been done. But these little segments would be good for kind of transitioning between area to area. So it would be good on performance, kind of unloading this area and loading this area. I'll have to find a way to kind of save the state of all of the colors and all the doors and all that, but that's a problem for future me. In the end, that's what we are. That's where we're at for the early level design. So let's see what's next on the list. Of course, I've been demonstrating the controller capability throughout the entire gameplay. Let's see here. Yes, the camera movement. So essentially, now the way that previously the way the camera worked is if you got the camera close to the player, it would go off to the side, kind of like a side view. Now we have it going up against the player. So if I full screen this, hopefully that does not break anything, and I go up, it will kind of like be above the player. I can still mess with this so that you could see the bottom of the player. In this view, this is kind of like the view I want, where you could see the top edge of the player, like sphere, but you have most view of everywhere. And I'll just need to do a tiny bit of tweaking for that. And the issue that I had previously is if you're under something, or if you're in a really tight corner, for example, this little tunnel here, then the camera would go all wonky, it would like clip into the wall and just be a bad time for everyone. So now it essentially puts you in first person mode. So if we go here, it transitions to this first person. So the camera is now inside the player sphere. So you could see as you were playing like a first person game. However, as you saw earlier, let's see if I could get them. Yeah, there we go. The eyes are still visible and in the way, so I'll need to do some material work to get it fully invisible and fully visible from this angle, but it kind of smoothly transitions from one to the other as you play, so hopefully it will avoid any headaches. And a previous issue was, one, okay, it kind of still happens, but if you try to go against the wall, it'll kind of jitter like that, and if you were at a specific angle like this with the previous camera, it would just go flying off into the other direction. So now you can see that it works a lot better. Let's carry on. So controller support, check. I guess now we could get to the exciting stuff, the actual equipments for the game, kind of like the abilities that you'll find throughout the entire game. So to see those, we're not going to be in this level anymore, as you don't find any equipments in this one. So let's go back to our trusty testing level, good old friend right here, and let's play it here. So let's take the controller once again, and this time I'm just going to take all of these kind of debug equipments. Think of these as the pieces of armor that you'll find that you'll need to bring to these kind of like landmarks to unlock the equipment. So I've set it so there's 0 for now. And there's 2 of each, so 2 of the red ones work, 2 of the green ones work, and 2 of the blue ones work. They're not going to be pretty, but they're going to be functional, and that's what matters at this stage in the game. So let's go to the red, and we have our trusty actual like equipment on the player. I could switch with the bumper on the controller, and let's start with this one. So this one is the blast. So if I hold down, you'll see a red sphere expand from the player. And if I let go, it will create kind of like a trace. And imagine a big explosion. As you can tell, if you hold it down and you release before it's done, it'll do various sizes. And as you can see, the amount of essence I have has now become a sliver, and I cannot do it anymore because it has a little failsafe preventing you from using all of your essence if you kind of like get to that point, just to make it less frustrating if you're like this close and you accidentally bump the button and there it goes. Interesting. That was a little bug. Oh yeah, little visual bug there too again. It's still rough around the edges, but essentially this will allow you to do an area blast. Let's try out the projectiles. So this will act as a fast firing kind of projectile weapon. So if I hold it down, it'll shoot a bunch. It's aiming where the red line trace is aiming, not exactly where the reticle is, because it's shooting from the gun's barrel instead of like the camera. It'll always have that kind of offset for the angle, which is why it has this little debug visual showing exactly where it's going to end up. But of course, if I aim and there's nothing in the way, it'll go exactly where the reticle is. So let's recharge a bit and use it. And there you see the projectiles go. Also, something I want to show off is I've been working on little destructible things, think barriers or boxes, stuff like that. So if I shoot one enough, there we go, it explodes. If I go back, recharge, and try the explosion, and I could either spam the explosion and have that happen, or I could hold it down and take off pretty much all of its health. There you go, very early stages of destructible stuff that you would expect from the red offensive destructive abilities. If you go to the green one, which is movement abilities, you'll see that I have either the dash or the hover. So let's start with the dash. Essentially, I could hold it down and you'll see a display kind of like pointing in the direction that I'm moving. So if I let go, I'll dash in that direction. There's a small cooldown, and if I'm not moving at all, it won't do anything, so I'm not using any of the essence. And essentially, it also works with walls. If I go up here and do that real quick, you see that I don't go through, thankfully, or thanks to a sweep thing, essentially checking if there's something in the way. And yeah, so you could use this to kind of teleport around, dodging attacks, getting over little obstacles, stuff like that. If we check out the hover, this is very self-explanatory. If I jump, you'll see basic gravity, but if I jump and hold, you'll see that I could actually hover. And once again, like any of the other abilities, once I get to the edge, I'm not sure if it works with the... Okay, so at this point, it does work with the dash. I can't do anymore. If it works with the hover, there we go. We have it in action. Let's get a tiny bit of... There we go. I think that might be enough. We'll see exactly when it runs out if I jump. And there we go, ran out. But I still keep the amount of essence without losing the color. So little things that you might not think of that make the game a lot better. Anyways, let's do the defensive abilities that we have in the game. So for this one, we have the shield, very self-explanatory. I hold it down, expands the shield, uses up the energy essence over time. If I let go, brings the shield back down. And we have this little bad boy, which is the shrink. So this is kind of funny. You press it and you shrink. Oh, interesting. Okay, haven't tested this out with the new camera. That's a little bug, but essentially I could shrink between big like this and small like that. You could see it for half a second. I would the camera going like this and clipping through stuff is not intentional. This is the first time I tried this ability with the new camera setup, so bear with me. But essentially you would see how you would see like this, but just with a smaller character. So you could fit through little holes and dodge like things and go in little crevices, stuff like that. So you could imagine using even the existing abilities that we have right now, how much variety in the gameplay is possible just with what we have so far. So that's kind of the what's the word? That's kind of the idea that I'm going for, is to just get the abilities done as soon as possible. So when it comes to actually designing the levels, the game, the areas, the progression, all that good stuff, we can just go ham and experiment with whatever is fun. So I believe that's all I wanted to show with the abilities and the equipment. Let me just double check. Yep. And once again, we have a fix to the score. So the animation, essentially, if I were to go here, it's going to play out fully. But if I were to go here, get out, and like re-enter, the scoreboard at the bottom would kind of reset the animation. So now, as you can tell, it just stays there. Oh, that's new. See, you discover bugs every time. So every time I do this, I gain a score, which I am surprised I didn't put a failsafe for that. Interesting. Moving on. I think that's all I wanted to show in Engine. So let's now go to the documentation. So let's go here. I have the documentation for the abilities. All these, all the red abilities, all the green abilities stayed the same. However, the blue abilities, I've changed out the Solidify for a barrier ability. So if you've played Team Fortress 2, think of this as a dispenser. Basically just a little pillar or just a little wall that expands from the ground, both providing cover in that specific area and a platform to jump on to kind of like access higher up areas. So this will be good for defense and traversal, which is a pretty interesting idea to play around with. The reason why we changed it to this is because I was brainstorming ideas for the boss design for the Solidify, and I just came up with nothing and saw the flaw in that ability, so I wanted to change it to something more interesting and more versatile, and thus the barrier exists. I've also changed up, let's see, where is it? Here. The minor tethers. Previously, these were used either to give color score to the player, like a minute amount, just a little challenge. However, I've decided to make the color score specifically when you activate the totems to give more of a consistency and not have it be like, hey, complete these little things over and over again to complete the game without ever touching a totem. So now there's a divide between those. So I've brainstormed either having them regenerate some essence, so you could like break these or do whatever these need to be done to get a bit of your essence back. However, there was a kind of like conflicting gameplay issue where you would need to use the ability to gain more, and then there'd be a bunch of programming headaches to kind of like restrict it and like all sorts of balancing issues. So in the end, these kind of little challenges throughout the game are going to be used to open up alternate paths. So there's going to be like a little trap door or like a platform that could raise or little things like that that change based on if you've completed the corresponding challenge. And I think that'll give a lot more the design ability to the level design, the gameplay, without necessarily confusing the whole systems. Keeping it simple, keeping it intuitive, and not making massive headaches in terms of the functionality and the programming and stuff. And yeah, I believe that is all I wanted to show for today in this devlog. So I'm Tim from Time Off Games. Once again, let me pull it up here. There we go. And I want to invite you guys to check out our games on the Time Off Games itch. So I'll pull that up real quick. The link is in the description, so feel free to check them out. All the games are free. And where is it? I should have came prepared. It's not showing up. Interesting. There we go. Boom. Okay. Back in action. So yeah, I would invite you to check out our games here on the Time Off Games itch page. Once again, they're all free, and all of them have been made with a ton of love by our team, by a lot of recurring members, and especially Orphan Tome here, our biggest project. We've spent months making this project with a massive group of artists, designers, and contributors. So massive shout out to the entire team that worked on Orphan Tome, and please play it for yourselves. It's a super fun game. Let's actually check it out. Yeah. I will never not love plugging this game because it is super cool. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day. See you guys in the future for another devlog, maybe some production streams, all that good stuff. And take care, guys.